As the night dragged on, Justin made frantic phone calls to friends and family, but no one had any information about Jimmy. Desperate, he finally called his parents, Barbara and Frank. "Jimmy's missing? How could you let this happen?" His mother snapped, her voice filled with anger. "Mom, this isn't the time for that. We need to focus on finding Jimmy," Justin responded, cutting a call short. Barbara and Frank wasted no time, driving straight to their son's house, consumed with worry over their grandson's disappearance. The moment they arrived, Barbara immediately confronted Kate, who sat sobbing on the couch. "Kate, how could you let this happen? You were supposed to take care of our grandson. How could you be so careless?" Her words cut deep into Kate's heart. "I didn't let this happen, Barbara," Kate sobbed, her voice trembling with emotion. "I can't believe you're blaming me. We need to focus on finding Jimmy, not on pointing fingers. Please, just leave me alone." Tension filled the air as the house grew heavy with worry and frustration. Kate and Justin tried to console each other, holding on to the hope that Jimmy would return safe and sound. Suddenly, Buddy, their dog, barked at the door, and the doorbell rang. Kate's heart raced as she rushed to the door, hoping beyond hope that Jimmy would be standing there. But instead, she was met by Officer Frederick and his team. "Good evening, Mrs. Turner," Officer Frederick said gently. "We're here to help find Jimmy. May we come in?" Though struggling to hold back her emotions, Kate led the officers inside and recounted every detail of Jimmy's last moments at home and his walk to school. The officers listened intently, then asked to see Jimmy's room, searching for any potential clues. But they found nothing. "Do you have a recent photograph of your son?" Officer Frederick asked. Kate nodded, trying to steady her shaking hands as she handed over a picture, clinging to the faint hope that the next knock on the door would bring her son home. Justin handed over Jimmy's photo, and Kate, her voice shaky, described what their little boy had been wearing the last time they saw him. The officers wasted no time, launching a full-scale search with the help of the community. They canvassed the neighborhood, interviewing anyone who might have seen Jimmy, including his classmates. He seemed happy, said he was excited about something. One of his friends told Officer Frederick. "Did he say what he was excited about?" The officer pressed. "No, the bell rang before he could tell me. We were all eager to go home. Jimmy was the first to run out of class." The police continued knocking on doors, speaking with more of Jimmy's friends. Door after door, lead after lead, nothing seemed to provide any real answers. That was until they arrived at one final house. Hesitantly, one of Jimmy's friends finally opened up. He mentioned being happy about meeting Candyman, his imaginary friend. Kate's breath caught. "Oh God, there is no Candyman. He's just a character Justin and I made up," she said, her voice trembling. "Whenever Jimmy acted out, we'd tell him that Candyman wouldn't bring him any more treats to get him to behave." The revelation brought them no closer to finding Jimmy. It felt like a dead end. The next day, frustration boiled over as Kate confronted the principal in his office. "The children are your responsibility. How could you let this happen? My son vanished from your school in broad daylight." She snapped, her anger spilling over. Justin placed a calming hand on her arm as the police requested access to the school's CCTV footage. In the security room, they anxiously watched the footage of Jimmy running down the corridor. "That's him. That's our Jimmy," Kate cried, pointing at the screen. But their relief quickly turned to confusion as they saw Jimmy enter the gymnasium and then exit through a back door. The principal, looking concerned, explained that the door led to a rear courtyard that had been closed off due to construction. In the playground, Kate and Justin desperately searched for any sign of their missing son. The police, scanning the area for clues, noticed a partially constructed wall with a gate that led to the main road. They questioned the construction workers, showing them Jimmy's picture, but none of them could recall seeing the boy. Then a young worker stepped forward. "I think I saw this kid walking through the gate," he said. "We were on lunch break, and I came back to grab my phone." The parents' hope reignited. What did you see?" they asked, hanging on to his every word. He was alone and looked a bit nervous, but then he smiled and waved as he walked toward a car. He got in, and the car drove off, the worker explained. Justin's voice trembled as he pressed for more details. "Do you remember anything about the car? The color? The driver?" The worker shook his head apologetically. "I didn't pay much attention. I think it was a white car, but I'm not sure. That's all I can remember." The uncertainty left Kate and Justin clinging to a fragile thread of hope. Could it be a kidnapping? Justin whispered, his mind racing. As a successful realtor, he feared that someone may have targeted his family for ransom. But why would Jimmy get into the car so willingly? Kate's eyes widened with a sudden realization. What if he knew the person in the car? Justin, that's it. He must have recognized them. But who would do this? Who do we know that could have taken him? Though Kate's theory made sense, Officer Frederick cautioned against jumping to conclusions. He assured the couple that they would continue their search and leave the investigation in the hands of the department. As days passed, the search intensified, but hope began to fade. The malfunctioning CCTV cameras near the school offered no leads, deepening the mystery of Jimmy's disappearance. Kate's despair grew with each passing day. One evening, clutching Jimmy's shirt in her hands, she broke down. "Is he even alive?" she cried, her heart heavy with fear and uncertainty. Trying to stay strong, Justin gently reassured Kate. "He's all right. He'll come home soon." But deep down, even Justin's hope was fading. Their grief was interrupted when Barbara and Frank came forward, apologizing for their earlier accusations. Now, they shared in the family's pain. In the midst of their sorrow, they noticed something alarming. Buddy was missing. Panicking, they searched the neighborhood and soon found Buddy returning with something in his mouth. It was Jimmy's backpack. Inside, they made a chilling discovery: a mutilated doll's head, accompanied by a sinister note that read, "Find him if you can." Horrified, Justin and Kate rushed to the police station, their fear now fully realized. 7 agonizing days had passed since Jimmy's disappearance. Officer Frederick, stunned by the evidence, immediately called for reinforcements and launched a full investigation. The police combed the area where Buddy had found the backpack, even deploying K-9 units, but no additional clues surfaced. The only lead was footage showing Buddy retrieving the bag. "Please, officers, find our son. After seeing the note and that doll, we're terrified for his life," Justin pleaded, breaking down in tears. Kate, overwhelmed by shock and despair, locked herself in their room, refusing to speak. The discovery of Jimmy's clothes, the menacing note, and the mutilated doll had shattered her completely. "Kate, please, come out of the room." Justin banged on the door, but her response was gut-wrenching. "Leave me alone. I want my son back, and you, and those cops, can't even find him." Hours later, a sudden realization hit Kate. She bolted from the room and out of the house, with Justin chasing after her. She stopped abruptly near the crumbling building where Buddy had found Jimmy's bag. "This place. I remember this building," Kate said breathlessly. "Justin, do you remember that terrible accident here last year?" she asked, her voice filled with a mixture of dread and hope. "Yeah, I remember," Justin replied, confused but starting to sense the weight of Kate's words. "Some kids were playing here, including Jimmy. He got hurt when the wall collapsed." "Exactly," Kate said, her voice trembling. "How did Jimmy's backpack end up here, the same spot where he was injured last year? It's too much of a coincidence. It's like someone's sending us a message." Suddenly, a realization hit her. It's Grace. No wonder Jimmy smiled when he got into the car. She was injured that day too, remember? The wall fell on her, but I was so focused on saving Jimmy that when she called for help, I left her. I left her there to die. Kate's voice cracked with guilt. What if this is her way of getting revenge? Remember how she glared at us when she left the neighborhood? Justin, alarmed by Kate's revelation, quickly called the police. The officers investigated and discovered that Grace, their former neighbor, had recently moved to a building just down the street. But when they reached her new home, they found out she had vacated it a week earlier. "We need to track her phone," Officer Frederick suggested, sensing they might be onto something. Finally, a break came. Grace's phone was last active near the woods on the outskirts of town. Frederick relayed urgently. "We're heading there now, and we'll need more backup." Kate and Justin followed closely behind the police cruisers, hearts pounding as they neared the dense woods. Each passing second intensified their fear, imagining the worst for their son. "Mr. and Mrs. Turner, please stay here while we conduct the search," Officer Frederick instructed. But Kate, overwhelmed by desperation, couldn't wait. While Justin and the officers were focused on organizing the search, she slipped away into the woods, her voice breaking as she called out, "Jimmy, Tom, Jimmy, it's Mommy. Where are you, honey? Jimmy, are you out there?" she cried, her voice echoing through the dark, foreboding forest. Suddenly, a sharp blow at Kate's head sent her spiraling into unconsciousness. When she came to, she found herself bound in a dark, cold cabin, her eyes meeting the twisted grin of Grace. "Ah, Kate dear, you're finally awake." Grace's voice was ice cold. "Oh, and by the way, I finished him," she said with a menacing laugh. "No, please no. Where's Jimmy?" Kate's voice broke as she cried out, fear gripping her heart. Grace slowly circled her, the sound of her laughter echoing through the room. "Cry for me, Kate. Cry. Just like I cried for help that day when you left me trapped under that wall. I lost everything because of you. You ignored my pleas and I lost my baby. My husband left me because I couldn't give him another child. You destroyed my life while you went on living yours, happy and untouched. Grace, I'm so sorry for your loss," Kate sobbed, her voice trembling. "I didn't know you were pregnant. Please, just let my son go. Please." Grace's expression darkened. "Oh, don't worry. I won't kill your son. I'm going to take him away and raise him as mine. But you don't get to live. It's your turn to suffer," she said, raising a gun and pointing it at Kate. Just as Grace was about to pull the trigger, the cabin door flew open and officers stormed in. "Drop the weapon." Officer Frederick's voice boomed as they surrounded Grace, putting an end to her twisted plan. The police found Jimmy in a nearby room, alive but bound. Relief flooded over Kate and Justin as the officers freed their son, and the family was finally reunited. "Thank you, Officer Frederick," Justin said, his voice filled with gratitude as Grace was led away in handcuffs. "It was your wife's quick thinking, sharing her location before heading into the woods, that helped us get here in time," Officer Frederick replied. When they arrived back home, Buddy greeted Jimmy with joyful barks and wagging tail. Amidst tears and laughter, the family celebrated Jimmy's safe return. "We missed you so much, Jimmy," Kate and Justin said together, holding their son tightly. "I missed you too. I'll never sneak out again or talk to strangers. I promise," Jimmy said, his voice full of sincerity. With the nightmare behind them, Justin and Kate silently vowed to always trust their instincts and face whatever challenges life might bring, together as a family.